Surprises in that race after we had started the day with qualifying early in the morning, 8 o'clock, but this was 12 noon. Let's go to race number 1 just before the start. Sit back and enjoy because it was a fantastic bit of action. So we're getting closer and closer. 2 sprint races this afternoon. And we hold our breath as the first row lights, second row lights. The lights go off and they're underway and explode away from the dock. And 10,000 horsepower go racing across 435 meters. Now charging their way up toward the commitment buoys. And as they push along the side, Eric Stark trying to make a move. Tarante on the outside and 2. And Tarante is fighting to get himself into that number 1 spot as the green flag is officially out as the field of drivers come whistling around. Bartek Marzawak trying to stay up into that first place position, and he got a great start. Look at the Polish driver pull away here 10 laps in, or 10 seconds ahead as he got around turn number 8. Tarente's about 10 boat lengths back. Celio is pushing hard. He started 4th. He's up into 3rd, and then a 2-boat battle between Stark and Jonas Andersen for that 4th place position.
What a start by Bartek Marcelak, the young Polish driver there. He's doing everything he needs to win this race. Came off the line. I think he was running a slightly bigger propeller than Sean Tarente, who seemed to have the legs on him. But as he increased in speed, he had a bigger propeller, more top-end speed, and he was able to get into that first turn just ahead of Tarente and start making his way forward. He's got clear water ahead of him, Steve, for a while. This is where he could really make up some ground.
All right, as you can see, Jonas Andersen trying to push up on Eric Stark, but Stark is able to pull away. Jonas Andersen dropping back. I wonder if the 2021 world champion may have a bit of a problem here, but he comes charging up on the outside. A good battle going on for 4th place, Jonathan.
Yeah, I think that Jonas has definitely got the legs on Stark there, sitting in 3rd at the moment. And you can see that Jonas is on the outside, Stark's on the inside. Jonas seemed to try and get ahead of him in that last lap. He tried to cut inside him, but he got some dirty water. It got rather rough. He had to back off, and Stark is still holding him off.
Stark out there on the right of your screen. Victory team based out of Dubai. And the 36-year-old driver from Sweden back on the tour. First time in 4 years. You got 2 Swedes right there fighting for the 4th. And in the 5th spot, trying to get up into the mix in that 4th place battle, Peter Morin, the driver out of France. But right now, the leader, Bartek Marzawak, he's holding about 2.5 seconds. I noticed that Sean Tarente in the last lap was able to pull out a few boat lengths on Sami Celio, the 2-time world champion. So he's got about a 2-second cushion right now between 2nd and 3rd place as the field comes by. Now remember, this is a shorter than normal race. This is a sprint race. So I'll tell you what, you want to do it all right now early on. There's no waiting for a good time. Right now is the good time, and you got to make hay when the hay is in the barn.
Yeah, dead right, but look at the way that Bartek Marcelak, he's pulling away from the rest of the field, Steve. This is something that we have not seen for a long time. Tarente hanging on in 2nd, but there he is, Bartek Marcelak, sponsored by Olin, the Polish oil company, and they've got to be really chuffed at the performance that he's putting up this weekend. As you said earlier on, Steve, he's already had 2 podiums. He's been knocking on the door for the last 2 or 3 races, and he is driving his socks off out there.
Bartek Marzawak, our leader, starting his 50th race, still looking for his first victory overall. He's got 3 podiums, and he is doing his best to try to made good his escape from the three-time world champion Sean Tarente, who's hanging right in there. The difference really between the top 5 is not much of a difference in the speed, but the top 3 are really close, within 5 seconds of each other.
Yeah, and the good thing for Bartek now is he's got that clear water for probably the next 5 or 6 laps before he starts coming up against the back markers. So this is where he can really open that gap between himself and the Abu Dhabi driver Sean Tarente in that second slot.
0.3 of a second, the margin for Bartek. He has increased that on the world champion. It's up to 3.15 seconds, the difference between first and second. Meanwhile, Tarente has gained a little bit more ground on the third place, Sami Celio, who has dropped back about another half second. And then Eric Stark is 5 seconds back of Celio, with Jonas Andersson just a second behind him. So very close, the top 3. Then there's a bit of a split between 4 and 5.
Yeah, Jonas then, he certainly hasn't given up, but he's under pressure from Peter Moran, the French driver, who's pushing for all he's worth. We do know that French boat has got some serious pace out there. Watch out for the number 7 boat in the next 2 or 3 laps.
As we look at Peter Moran, the veteran driver who has replaced his ex-father-in-law, 3-time world champion Philippe Shep, who has stepped aside. And they brought on the American Brent Dillard out of South Carolina. The 36-year-old rookie's in the number 8 boat, but all eyes are on the number 7 machine, as this 43-year-old out of Rouen, France, is right up there where he's happy to be, up in the point structure. He's in the top 6 right now, as Jonas Andersson and Peter Moran are dropping back just a tad. And Bartek Marzowak continues to increase the lead about 1/3 of a second every lap over Sean Tarente, who's desperately trying to stay right there with him.
Yeah, what they've got to watch now, Bartek, is that when he comes up against the back markers, which is going to be in the next 3 or 4 laps, then hopefully he can get through them. It's very important that the back markers are in communication with their crew chiefs on the bank, and they do give these front drivers a gap so that they can get through and carry on with this unbelievable battle at the front of the field.
Yeah, you can see on the background all the crowds that encircle this like a crescent moon. There's tremendous amounts of people. Well over 100,000 had bought tickets, and they sold it out in about 23 minutes, Jonathan. That was incredible when the tickets went out on sale. So everybody in Indonesia here this afternoon, this is the first of 2 sprint races, 18 laps, as they fight for their chance to watch speed on the water, and they're getting the world's best drivers here today.
Yeah, you can see Jonas there coming on the inside now, starting to pressurize Stark in that 4th position, Steve. I don't think it's going to be long before. And look, Jonas on the inside, he's running that boat it's his number 2 boat, so it doesn't perform as well as his main boat, which he had problems with that you pointed out yesterday. He certainly hasn't given up on this 4th position. Stark there still running cool. Jonas overshooting the turn buoy there, letting that boat run so loose on top of the water. The number 14 boat is pushing for all he's worth.
Yeah, this is the second time he's run this boat in 6 years, believe it or not. So talking with him after qualifying today, he says, yeah, I got to get a feeling for this boat. It's going to take me a while. And right now, 5 laps in, he seems a bit aggressive, and that's great for Jonas Andersson and all his fans that are here cheering him on. He missed the World Championship last year by 10 laps. He had the championship in his pocket. He almost became a 2-time world champion, but for the first time in all of 2022, he had a mechanical problem. He dropped out with just 10 laps to go, and Sean Tarente, who had been in a tremendous crash, was sitting with wet clothing on in the paddock, all of a sudden realized that, hey, I'm the new world champion.
Yeah, Stark watching him in his mirrors there. As you can see, Jonas comes through the right-hander, takes a tighter line. The problem is, when you take the tighter line, you tend to scrub off a little bit of speed, but he's still there with him. You can see Stark there turning tight on the boys, watching every move of Jonas. It looks to me like Stark knows exactly where he is, and he knows what to do to hold up the pressure that Jonas is putting on him.
No, looks like Marit Stromoy is dropping out, the teammate of Bartek Marzowak. Marit Stromoy, who had qualified in the 10th spot, has dropped out. That's not a good sign for Stromoy Racing. But while we watch this battle here, in that battle for 4th place, oddly enough now, Tarente is shaving that down, the distance between 1st and 2nd. The real estate's getting smaller and smaller. It's now 2 seconds. So he's gained 1.3 seconds on the leader, Bartek Marzowak, as they get closer and closer here as we've gone way past the 1/3 mark of this quick 18-lap sprint, the first of 2 races that will determine the Grand Prix this afternoon, and these will count in points. And I'll tell you something, Bartek now needs to just focus, stay on what he needs to do here as you work around some traffic.
Yeah, just looking at the boat there with Bartek there, a little bit off balance as he came through the last 2 turn boys there. The boat a little bit running a bit too loose on the water, but he seems to have everything under control now, Steve. It's still 2 seconds. You can see Terente there trying to cut through on the inside, going around a shorter part of the, trying to shorten the track to try and make that gap on him, but it's still there, 2 seconds as we speak.
Yeah, Bartek got a 1/10 of a second back, 2.11 the difference between first and second place. They're closing the gap a little bit closer. It's about 12 boat lengths separating the two. And again, it's a situation of how this young driver, who for the first time in his career is feeling the pressure of leading a race. You've done that so many times, Jonathan. Does your mind change when you lead a race and you're in protective mode, or you just keep focusing on the job at hand?
You got to keep focused. You got to keep pushing. You've got to be running at 110%, because that's when these boats are running at their best on the water. But Sean, getting through back markers there, overtaking Duarte Benavente, the Portuguese driver. Maybe it slowed him a little bit there. I noticed that Bartek seemed to get through the back markers a little bit quicker, and you can see that he's increased that gap, Steve, again by just a split second. So at the moment he's still sitting pretty there. That boat running so well in these tough conditions here in Indonesia.
Yeah, it was a bit bad luck for the world champion. You mentioned he got caught up with the Portuguese driver, Duarte Benavente, the oldest driver on the tour, and Bartek took full advantage of it. He got his second back. It was down to 2 seconds. It's back up to 3.3 seconds, the difference. Wow. Yeah. So Bartek got the job done. So we know this young man who is from Poland can figure out that he can handle the pressure of being in a #1 spot. At least he can so far. We're halfway through this race. Sprint race #1 of 2 this afternoon for the Grand Prix of Indonesia.
And I think that they're both built from the same factory up in northern Italy in Como there. But I think that the boat that Bartek has got, Steve, is just slightly longer. And that means that when the conditions get rougher as the race goes on, maybe his boat is better suited. You can see he's gaining again on Sean Terente in that second. Is he having an easier ride? Is he able to push a little bit harder as the race goes on?
We'll have to wait and see here as we've gone past the halfway point. Over down toward turn #9. Now it's a front straightaway of 520 meters. These are 9 turns, 2 right-handers. Very unusual, very technical in nature. And the drivers really have to focus on their lines, because if you get offline, you're going to lose a lot of time. And again, this battle between 2 Swedes, Eric Stark and Jonas Andersson, continues to heat up down in that 4th place between the 2 drivers, which is now just a matter of a second separating those 2.
I think if Jonas was able to get ahead of him, he'd have a bit of clear water and he'd pull away from him. But as you can see, look, as Stark turns there, Jonas is getting all the wash and the spray and finding it quite difficult to actually see as he tries to improve and close that gap with Stark.
Philippe Schaap, there you see second alone. This is his brother-in-law, or I should say his ex-son-in-law out there running, Peter Moran. And the driver from Rouen is starting his 27th race, still looking for his first victory. He's got 3 podiums, and he's a good qualifier, but getting him up there. Now, really, Peter Moran, in the past, he's been 7 top 5s in his last 11 races, so he knows how to finish up in the top 5. He's doing his best to do it right now. He's in the 6th spot.
And he's, of course, we've got to bear in mind that he's running a new boat here this weekend. He has not run it in the past. It was the boat of Philippe Schaap, 2-time world champion. Although I spoke to him after practice and he said it's a lot lighter on the water. It seems to accelerate a lot better, but it's just going to take me a little bit of time to get into the groove and know the limits of that boat.
Wow, the difference in speed between the top two, as you saw it on your screen a second ago, just 3.9 seconds separating 1-2, and then the cushion between Torrente and Sami Selju, almost 7 seconds. Wow, so it's a two-boat battle up in the front, and then Selju is pretty much by himself, 5 seconds ahead of Eric Stark, but we're all watching the Eric Stark, Anderson, Peter Moran battle. Three-boat battle for 4th place, and that's only separated by about 2.5 seconds.
Yeah, pretty even Stevens there, isn't it, Steve? There's about a second between Stark and Anderson, and you can see that the French driver Peter Moran trying everything he can. He's on the inside, outside, just trying to close down that gap between himself and Anderson. And again, back markers coming into play, Steve, for these three drivers. We could see a change if some of the slower drivers don't get out of the way for one or two of these drivers.
We talked about 4 different rookies this year fighting for that prestigious Rookie of the Year award. And right now, Ahmed Al-Fahim, who is the teammate of Eric Stark on that victory team, doing well. He's up in the, we take a look, he's in the 8th spot, just ahead of the American Brent Dillard with the CTIC China team, who's in the 9th position.
Yeah, just looking back as well, looking at the first three there, Sami Selju doesn't seem to have the pace of the two front drivers, does he, Steve? We've got a 2.84 second gap between Bartek and Sean, and then about 10 seconds between Sean and Sami Selju in 3rd.
Torrente's closing the gap big time, Jonathan. It's down to 2.04 seconds. He shaved a second and a half. Torrente now less than 10 boat lengths, separating 1 and 2 as we work our way down to the final 5 laps of the first of 2 sprint races that we'll have for you this afternoon as we continue to watch that 4th place battle between Eric Stark and that blue boat on your right for the victory team. Jonas Anderson, the 2021 world champion. There's his wife Janie talking to her husband. And it's a full family effort, and neighbors up in Sweden, they all help out in the community. They try to help their buddy and neighbor, Jonas Anderson, the best they can to get him to have a successful season. It's kind of a great little group gathering there.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the passion in Scandinavia in general for powerboat racing, especially Formula One or any form of motorsport, is quite unbelievable. And we're back there again. Doesn't seem to be too much progress made with the China team, but trying everything that they can. And
all right, here's Peter Moran. Look at him making the move now, Jonathan, on the inside, heading into the right-hander, sending Jonas Anderson way wide. So the driver from France has moved himself up, and Jonas Anderson looks like Jonas Anderson could be coming slower and slower on the race circuit. He's slowed down. He's still running, but the yellow flag is out. There's a problem on the race circuit with 4 laps left to go. And oh my, this will make it interesting, Jonathan, as one of the Sharjah drivers went over.
Which one is that, Steve?
It's either Ferdinand or it might be Ferdinand.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, Ferdinand Zanderberg.
Oh dear.
The driver from Holland, who last year battled himself to almost getting Rookie of the Year award. This is his 2nd season. He finished 5th in the championship. And for him, he crashed out of the race in Sharjah in his last event.
Yeah, you could see the Osprey rescue team there at hand very, very quickly. The front, they got a drop-down dory. It's an inflatable boat with you can see the front end of it drops down, so that when they recover the driver out of the water, they don't have to pull him in over the boat. He floats into the boat. But looking at him there sitting on the side, Steve, it's a-okay with him. He looks in pretty good shape.
He's holding the green flag in his hand. Luis Ribeiro from Portugal, a UIM official. We anticipate the start. Green flag, we're back underway. In less than 2 laps to go, and here we go. The battle for the front is on in earnest. Torrente on the outside, trying to push as hard as he can with Bartek. Forced to go wide. Torrente slides around the corner. Now side by side. Torrente has the inside lane for the right-hander, Jonathan. Oh, let's see what happens. Can this Cinderella story continue for Bartek, or will Torrente end it in dreams and tears for the drive for Poland and Sean Torrente, the 3-time world champion, with less than a lap and a half to go, has taken over the lead on the restart.
You know, we said a 3-lap dash, and that's basically what it was. And you can see now that Bartek, he just didn't quite get the pace that he wanted on that restart. Sean Terente pounced on him and took the lead of the race.
Here on the final lap, now we hold our breath with just 3 more corners to go. Sean Terente now at Team Abu Dhabi is trying to pull away and easily head down into turn number 9. That was the move of the day, and Sean Terente, your 3-time world champion for Team Abu Dhabi, will circle around, come by the start-finish line, and he'll come across. And
the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Mr. Joko Widodo, to present the trophy to our winner for F1H20 World Championship Grand Prix Indonesia. Kita berikan tepuk tangan yang meriah untuk Bartek Marzala from Poland. Hadirin sekalian, sekarang waktunya untuk berfoto bersama pemenang. Kami persilahkan to all dignitaries untuk berfoto bersama seluruh pemenang. We invite to all dignitaries to join the winners for the last applause and official picture. Hadirin sekalian, boleh sekali lagi kita berikan tepuk tangan yang meriah untuk all the winners for F1H20 World Championship Grand Prix Indonesia. Kami ucapkan terima kasih kepada Presiden Republik Indonesia, Bapak Joko Widodo, yang telah berkenan Okay, now it's time to celebrate.
Baik, pemirsa, kami informasikan bahwa tadi Anda menyaksikan tayangan ulang juga dari race pertama karena race kedua harus dihentikan pada lap yang keempat karena memang faktor angin tadi yang terlalu kencang sehingga para pebalap tadi berhenti di putaran keempat dan tentunya tidak ada hasil ataupun hasil dari race kedua tadi yang baru berlangsung selama 3 putaran ini dianggap dianulir. Dan kita lihat untuk awarding ceremony tadi dari race pertama,
ya,
di mana Bartek Marsalek tadi ya yang menjadi juara naik podium urutan pertama, kemudian ada Sami Selio dari tim Uni Emirat Arab, kemudian Eric Stark dari tim Victory juga dari Uni Emirat Arab.
Ya, awarding ini merupakan hasil dari race pertama gitu ya, karena memang tadi di race kedua nampaknya cuaca belum begitu mendukung karena angin begitu kencang dalam lap keempat, terpaksa harus ditunda atau dihentikan. Dan ini merupakan hasil akhir di race pertama.
Kita nantikan ada hasil dari race kedua tadi ya, karena memang sebenarnya bendera finish tadi dikibarkan ketika balapan memasuki putaran keempat. Dan inilah Bartek Marsalek, pembalap dari tim Stromoy Racing F1H20 yang berhasil menjadi juara, tambahan 20 poin bagi Bartek Marsalek dan juga tim Stromoy Racing. Inilah 2 pebalap dari tim Stromoy sendiri, ada Bartek Marsalek, kemudian di sisi kanan Marit Stromoy.
Ya, ini yang tadi sempat kita bahas di awal, pembalap wanita satu-satunya yang mengikuti F1 Powerboat dari Norwegia dan usianya saat ini 46 tahun, namun terlihat masih muda gitu ya. Dengan potensi perwakilan dari Norwegia yang mengikuti kejuaraan dunia kali ini.
She is a huge promoter of the sport. She has a 2-seater promotion boat. And for her, I mean, it's unbelievable about getting the word out in Scandinavia. Powerboat racing is really, really big.
Ya, inilah Bartek Marsalek yang akhirnya bisa menjadi juara di GP Danau Toba, yang menjadi gelar juara pertama bagi dirinya di ajang F1H20.
Ya, Bartek Marzalek dan dari Stromoy Racing ini kembali menunjukkan skill terbaiknya pada seri pembuka Formula One Powerboat 2023 yang diselenggarakan pertama kalinya di Danau Toba, Bali, Sumatera Utara. Dan sebelumnya juga meraih catatan waktu tercepat pada babak kualifikasi dengan catatan waktu 58,21 detik. Menjadi juara seri pembuka pada F1 Powerboat tahun ini.